Hi everyone, it's Catherine here from Inky Finger Cat, and I am still on my mission to use up this magazine kit and to try and film a video on everything that I do using it. So I didn't really have a clue what I was going to do. I'd grabbed a piece of this lilac card out, and then I started sort of like cutting some of the pieces that are in these sort of like cut apart type pieces of paper. I ummed and ahed about using that pattern paper for a bit with those sort of diamond shapes. I do end up using those longer things. They're sort of like longer panel ribbons, sort of paper ribbons. But then I end up just using the panel that I've cut out and put to the side and a sentiment. I don't end up using those sort of diamond shapes. I just end up using this as the main focal point, and then I go back to the stamped images. So we'll get to that bit in a minute. So where it was a curve, I use my scissors to cut it out, but where it's a straight line, I use my trimmer because that's the only way I'm going to get straight lines. And I worked out sort of the size of this, and originally I was going to make a square card, but I don't end up doing that. I make a 5x7 card in the end, but for this panel I decided, right, okay, square card, and then I decided to use these paper ribbons to create some interest behind the sort of the square shape. Well, I don't know, what is that shape? The shape with the little corners cut out anyway. So I do something with these two paper ribbons to create a little pattern behind, cutting off the edges, the extras, and then in my pile of like special papers, like the golds and the glitters and things like that, I have these little thin strips that were cut off something else, and I thought, oh, that'll make a nice little accent. And so originally I was going to put them directly behind where the image was going, and then I changed my mind and decided I didn't want to cover so much of it up, so I decided to just offset it slightly. And then I decided it was going to be a 5x7 card. I originally toyed with the idea of the craft, but then decided I didn't like the craft and the lilac on this occasion, and so I went and found myself white cardstock in order to make a 5x7 card. This did take a little bit of time, that's why I'm off screen for a little while, but here we go. But now I've got that, I don't particularly want that to be the panel behind. I want it to be a full length of the card, so I just cut another one. Now, I will admit I'm using quite cheap cardstock here. It's stuff that I've bought from Amazon at some point, and it is really flimsy. You can see how easily it bends and stuff. So I have not got the best quality cardstock here. So having 2 layers of it is fine. I added a little bit more of that gold trim, that just fine gold element to that bit to sort of disguise really where there was a extra layer of cardstock. I do fiddle a bit with the sizing of this, and I eventually get there so it's the right sort of size for the card blank, and then I just stick it all in place. Plenty of ATG glue on there, that's not coming off anytime soon. Now I'd also chosen this little sentiment, and again it's a similar sort of shape but more of a rectangle with the corners sort of like cut out. Again, I'm using my trimmer, and this time I decided that I need to mount that onto some white. Again, because this is a paper rather than a cardstock, I think sometimes it just works better if it's been mounted. So again, I go in with my scissors to cut the corners out, and again the trimmer in order to trim the edges, and it just gives it a little border of white. This time I do have to fiddle a little bit because I didn't quite cut enough off the first time, so I do go back in and just slim it down a little bit. That's the great thing about that guillotine. It's really easy to just add a little element, a little slither off, just to get a little bit off. I use my foam adhesive tabs from the Kingston Crafts adhesive kit, and I put plenty on. The reason I put glue on is not because they won't stick, it's because of the fact that it just gives me that little bit of wiggle room as I put it down. If I put it down just slightly wonky, it's a bit quicker. You can pull it off or move it across. Now, at that point, I could have finished, to be perfectly honest. I think that would make a lovely card, but I decided to go a bit over the top because this is me. And I already had these elements stamped out from the first time I used this magazine kit. I stamped them out, already, and I am now just colouring them in with a little bit of ink. I used a couple of different colours of ink to colour them in, really choosing to go with the colours of the fuchsias that are on the picture element, even though these are not necessarily fuchsia type flowers. I do the same with the, I then dry it, and then I use the dies that are in the die set, which came with the magazine. There are 2 dies that fit these shapes perfectly. So I used a little bit of tape in order to make sure that they stayed in place whilst I die cut them. It took me a little bit of working out to see whether I was actually lined up. I think I probably went round full circle with my fiddling, so I was probably right the first time, and then die cut them out. Now, the tape that I used did sort of stick a lot more than it should have done, but I managed to pull that back up again. So originally I was just going to stick one to the left and that was it, and layer it up, but I ended up separating them out as 2 separate flowers. And then of course I decided I also wanted a leaf. For the centre of the flowers, I did add some gold glittery gems. They're kind of flat gems, but I think they're from Hey Little Magpie. I'm pretty sure that's where I've got those from. And I just thought they would add that little bit of sparkle without being too over the top, just to the centres of those flowers, because the stamped images don't really have a centre to the flower. I don't know if there is one in the stamp kit. I'll have to have a look. I don't think that there is anyway. And then I decided to add 3 leaves. Again, I heat embossed those. Now, there might have been dies to cut one of these leaves out, but I don't think that there are dies to cut all of them out. So I just thought, you know what, it's leaves. They can't be difficult to cut, so I fussy cut them instead. I think I used Old Olive for the colour of the green, because there is quite a lot of green in the image that is on the card, and I thought that was the one that worked the closest. Again, just added a little bit of glue underneath the leaf. I did have to tuck that one a little bit, it was a bit more tricky to tuck, and then decided that's it, it's done. Now, it was a sunny day the day I did this card, and so the light on it is really quite bright. So yeah, the close-ups look a little bit odd in the colour, but I think that they look nice. So, one more card made. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you're enjoying the series. Please do click subscribe to see more. But until next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.